Hello, everybody, and welcome to day 39 of Awakening to Ascension. Today, I will be your host, Shanae, and I'm joined today by Peter, Marlene, and Alex. Today's topic is a really, really great one. I think a lot of individuals will resonate, and it is mindset matters. And I'm going to pass it straight off to Peter for us to begin, and let's see what he has to say.
Okay, so um, years ago, I used to struggle with this issue so bad, so bad. Um, and apparently, I hadn't learned how to control my own mind when I was younger and didn't have the right environment for me, for whatever reason that is. So my mind would just go into anxiety, um, panic attacks, uh, and it was almost like I was a victim of my own mind, my own thinking, which was kind of true. So 4.5 years ago, I kind of identified that. And so then I started reading books and I started to figure out the process of why was this happening, what trauma had caused. Like I just started identifying everything. And so trying to make this a little bit shorter here, that come to find out that your mind really controls your reality. You can be going through the hardest, worst things you can imagine. But if your mind is your friend, if you are, um, the inner child healing, and you're not blaming yourself, and you're not playing the victim, and you're not ruminating on things that you can't change, and you re, you reshape that, what's the word? Reframe that. You reframe it into always turning something, just tweaking it into, what is this trying to teach me? And so then life is happening for me instead of happening to me. So then when stumbling blocks inevitably come up, because it's life and they will, we can reframe anything that's going on and tweak it into, life is happening for me, and that I can reframe this into something good. And if I can reframe anything into something good, then I can enjoy my life regardless of what's going on around me. So I've been thinking about that a lot, uh, because it's so important to me now, and it literally determines everything for me now, that I can reframe anything into a positive. Um, yeah. So
Yeah, totally,
Thank
dude. Like
yeah.
the mindset is so important and it can literally change your entire reality.
yeah.
Coming from somebody that like myself, I had, and I say had because I don't have it anymore, but depression for like 30 years, right? And your mind can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And you begin like your thoughts are results of like what you hear in your environment, right? So like if you have family members that talk down to you or tell you that you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you'll start believing those thoughts. And the worst thing to do is when you start telling yourself that you're a bad person. Like that's a double whammy because like you are just perpetuating this cycle of dark thoughts, and there are a lot of ways to overcome this. Like you can listen to like hypnotic audios that are just affirmations. I actually even write positive comments and plaster them all over my wall, so every time I see them my subconscious sees them, and it's like, oh, you're a good person, you're a good healer, all the different things. And getting into the habit of if catching yourself saying something negative, reframe that exactly what Peter said. Like you reframe that into something positive. And the more you're able to find the silver lining in everything, because there's a lesson, there's a silver lining in everything. Being able to find that and saying, okay, maybe this worked out for me, for my benefit. Yes, Janae.
Oh man, you too. Thank you. Thank you. I think what makes this podcast so amazing is the authenticity of it. It's us just being real with individuals. And a lot of the times I believe that many of them need to hear this because sometimes you do, you feel like a failure. You know, like Alex says, you just get told these things and then you start believing it. So I did the exact same thing as Alex. I've put affirmations all over the house. I had mantras. I used to buy chalk frames and write quotes in it, and I'd put it all over because it's reminders. You need to, because it's not something, it's a reprogramming. You have to put these reminders in place so that your brain, your eyes can see it visually. And children learn through visual. That's how we learn. And that's why having it visually up in the home, in your workspace, in the car, put post-it notes on your diary. And if you are a teenager or a child listening, put it in your school books. You know, as you open your school book, put something on the front page. And something I did as a child with mindset, I've always had a very, very strong mindset growing up because of the industry that the career I was in. Have a role model as well. Find somebody that you truly look up to and look at them and think, wow, you know, this person is really amazing. And I would find a photo of something very inspirational that I wanted to aspire to, and I would put it on my books, my school books, because it's constant reminders for you to continuously better your mindset. And this training comes up with me a lot. I'm in the movement sphere, so it's just a word I use a lot. But it is training. As much as you physically train your body, mindset is also training. It's training the mind. And it's not something, it's learning a language. You're not going to be able to learn French in one night. It's not just going to happen and the next morning you'll wake up and you can speak French fluently. It's the same thing as playing an instrument. So you really do just need to encourage yourself and do a little bit extra every single day so that it gets better. And don't be too hard on yourself. So in dancing, something I really use for you to uh, conceptualize is when you stretch, you actually get worse. So, because you're stretching your muscles, the resistance that's happening with your muscles, they start to become taut because of the stretch. In your mind, you think you are getting tighter, but you're not. You got to break through that barrier to get to that full capacity that you've been working at. And that's a mindset. Most people would believe that they are getting stiffer, so they stop, but you've got to keep the persistency, the consistency, and that's how you're going to gain momentum and the car's going to roll and you're just going to be on this like amazing, epic, awesome ride. Yes, Alex.
Yeah, so it's called mind control. So like if you don't control your own mind by actively steering your thoughts in different directions, everything else will control your mind. So like the what you watch on TV, what you listen to on the radio, what kind of music you listen to, like that's all just shaping what is going, like what is happening in your brain. Yes, Marlene.
So for me, mindset is everything, and learning to understand and listen to it. If I look at the word emotion, emotion denotes energy in motion. And sometimes I get swept away by the emotions, which takes over my mind. And it can happen so very easily. And that can take me down the river and I crash straight down like a waterfall. And it happens, it's like instantaneously if I don't catch myself. And I think it's a very tantamount thing to do is to just become very cognizant of what I give energy to, because each and every thought determines the next moment's thought, feeling, action. So I have had times when I too have gone into depression and places of great darkness. But that darkness has brought me such incredible insight. And it's about sitting in it, feeling it, honestly immersing oneself in those feelings, in that moment, and not being hard and not finding fault with myself, but actually allowing the process of unfoldment. That one thing gives rise to the next thing. Because if I bottle up those emotions and those thoughts in my head, then that hamster wheel just keeps running faster, 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 faster. And it becomes even more challenging to get off that hamster wheel once that whole thing has been kicked into touch. And with a little bit of practice every single day, affirmations, and being kind to myself, and being more consistent in showing up for me and not always for other people first, it has made a tremendous difference. And at times I can be sitting and I just stop and I think about how much I have actually grown, progressed. And I think that a whole big part of this as well is about self-love. Because in this whole thing is actually coming to see myself in a different light, in a more real light, in a more kind, compassionate light for me. And when that happens, I am able to process it quicker and let it go and catch myself before something starts to honestly go down that roller coaster.
So, Marlene, I completely agree with you with the emotion. And something that I read or somebody said to me once was, think of it like a wild horse. Would you get onto a wild horse and ride the wild horse for a really long time? Answer, no. So your emotions, think of them when they arise. You have to, Marlene said, don't bottle them up, but train yourself to get onto the wild horse, ride that wild horse, feel the wild horse, release all the emotion while that wild horse is taking you down wherever you're going, and then get off the wild horse and let the wild horse continue and dissipate the emotion for you. Because that emotion, if you continue holding onto it, it can make you spiral into days, and some people weeks and months, and it takes a really long time for you to come back out of it. And with mindset, something very important is also who, like Alex explained, what you're watching is very important, but also who you're surrounding yourself with. Be very, very careful with who you are surrounding yourself with, because words are extremely powerful and you need to surround yourself. You always think of this when you leave somebody's company, ask yourself a question. How do I feel after being in that person's presence? Do I feel lighter or do I feel heavier? And if the answer is heavier, you need to reevaluate how much time you spend with that individual or particular people in particular. And I'm going to hand it back to Peter.
Yes, this actually dovetailed perfectly with what the three of you said to what I was thinking of next, which was when we gravitate or when we transition towards taking care of ourselves, taking care of our inner child, the self love bit, um, we also are able to interact with other people better. And the reason is because if someone says something to us that's unkind or um, in the past maybe would trigger a past wound, when you've done that work, you are not sacrificing yourself anymore for this situation. And so you can listen to a person and they can say whatever they say, but you don't necessarily take it personally because number one, you know better about yourself. Okay. Not that we don't make mistakes. I'm not talking about accountability here. But we have to take accountability, and that's also important because we have to be honest with ourselves. But we then can respond instead of react to what someone else is projecting onto us. And so this whole dynamic is so fascinating. I find it um yeah, love it.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple more things. So, like, yeah, I agree with everything that everyone's been saying. But I do want to specify or like just mention that when you are stuck in a negative feedback loop with your thoughts, it's going to take a lot of time to get out of it. It doesn't just happen
Yeah.
overnight. It takes a lot of time. I mean, just yesterday, a ton of emotions came up for me, and like I cried really hard for like a minute, maybe five, and then it was done. And I noticed myself going back into those old patterns of telling myself that like, oh, you're a terrible person. And I was like, whoa, 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 stop that right now. Because like, it used to happen all the time, but now it's very sporadic. It's very sparingly when it happens. One thing that you can do is you can get a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen and just write down positive affirmations about yourself. If this makes you cry, that means you need to do it more. That means that you are so not used to hearing words of comfort and love that your brain is just like, no, this isn't true, this isn't true. And you keep doing that, like do it once a day if you can, and you'll start feeling way, way better over time. Yes, Marlene.
So, continuing on that vein, I have a jar of small wins. And every time that I do something for myself, that for me is different and like I stepped out of it. I write it down and I put it into the jar. And at the end of every month, I take those out. So I collect them for 30 days or 31 days and I put it into an envelope. And at the end of the year, I can actually sit down and take stock of all those little moments that were big wins to me. And that makes my heart melt because I know how much time and effort I put in. And I become even more grateful for myself and for the self care and the self love in my process. So, that for me is and it's such a simple thing to do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for adding that last piece. That is all the time we have for today. Drop in the comments what you use to shift or shape your mindset. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.